Today's recipe is just a very simple chocolate layer cake. This is simple 2 layers of chocolate, some beautiful buttercream frosting, and a little bit of just having some fun. Today I'm going to make chocolate cake. Oh yeah, nothing quite like a chocolate cake, and it's really cool when you can add special little extras to it. Like, what flavor will you make the frosting in the middle of yours? Will you make it almond, chocolate? Will you make it orange or lemon? That would be interesting. Will you just make it plain vanilla? There are so many flavors. What about coffee? Coffee would be a great flavor in the middle of a chocolate cake. That's a very, very complex combination. And by the way, they go together really well. So what we're going to do today, we're going to get in the kitchen and make a beautiful chocolate cake. And the whole idea here is I wanted to kick off my season 6 with a new baking series that gets into a little more advanced cake making. So we're going to be doing some layer cakes and stuff like that, and some really neat recipes. And this is the first of, and so it's going to be very basic. It's just 2 simple layers with a beautiful center and a wonderful coating on the outside, and who knows, maybe a little decoration. So we'll get in the kitchen and cook this up. Before we do, though, I would like to mention, when you see a link in my description box for a recipe, it's going to take you directly to the recipe, and you're going to see my website at the same time. The recipe that you're looking at there, I wanted to show you what one looks like, so you know kind of what you're getting. This is one that I've just opened up to right here. Now, I've printed these on brochure paper, and that way they can be printed on both sides. So, you know, see there? And you get a really nice quality. These are designed to be printed out. They're really clear. They're well laid out, instructions that are numbered. The ingredients lists are very easy to understand because of the way I bullet point them. And it makes cooking a little more fun the way I lay out my recipes. So please take a look at those. Those are really neat. We're going to get in the kitchen now. You're going to get this recipe for free anyway if you're willing to write it down. And this is going to be some fun. This is a simple 2-layer chocolate cake. Let's go have some fun. Come on. These beautiful ingredients are what we have for our cake today, with the exception of this one. This is some coffee extract. That'll be used probably for the frosting or something like that. What we have here are ingredients for a basic chocolate cake, and this is a nice chocolate cake, folks. It has a really good structure. The crumb inside of it's lovely. It has you know, different size little air pockets in it, and it makes a good quality cake. What I expect from a sponge cake is what this gives you. Now, what we have here is some butter, and right up here I've got also sugar and flour. I've got some milk and eggs. And that right there gives you a basic cake, folks, when, of course, you combine it with leavening. And here we have some baking soda, some baking powder, and some salt. Now, to flavor this thing up, of course, this is chocolate cake, so we need cocoa, and that we have here. I've got plenty of cocoa, but I've also got one other little item here, and this, even though there's not much of it, this one little bit of this one item really changes the complexity of this cake, and that is a little bit of cinnamon. The tiniest bit of cinnamon, when mixed with cocoa, well, let's put it this way. It's sort of like the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Those 2 flavors that you wouldn't expect go well together. Same thing here. They marry beautifully together. A little bit of vanilla makes a cake that's chocolate be a little more chocolatey flavored. Even though vanilla is not chocolatey, it gives the palate the perception of a more chocolatey flavor. So we add a little bit of vanilla. It's not noticed, but it does make a richer cake. That's it right there. This is the ingredients for the cake portion. Later we're going to do the ingredients for the icings, and then, for the frosting. And Then at the end of the video, I'm going to give the ingredients quantities for everything that we've used. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're making this cake, do this. Start by creaming that butter. Get it light and fluffy. When it turns almost white and it has just about doubled in bulk, add in that sugar. Not all at once, just a little bit at a time, and slowly cream it in. And then once all the sugar's in there, cream it again until it gets nice and smooth. After that, then work in your eggs one at a time, creaming those in until they're each emulsified in fully. Then work in your milk and the flour and spice combination over here. After that, once you get it all together and you're in your final beat, add in your teaspoon of vanilla, and once it has been beaten and it comes out nice and smooth, put that in your cake pans and we are ready to bake at that point. Very simple procedure. Now I have my cake mixing over there. I need to prep my pans. You can do a regular grease and flour where you just rub grease all over it, throw flour in it and flour it out. Or you can use one of those spray-in coatings that have the flour mixed in with the oil coating. So go ahead and use either one. They'll work for this. Make sure even if you have a non-stick pan, you go ahead and follow this procedure. It is important not to tear those cakes. Folks, I am busy creaming right now. I've done the butter, then we creamed in the sugar, and I creamed that butter for about 10 minutes. Creamed the sugar after that for about 8 minutes, and then I've got the eggs in there, and we're moving up on about 4 minutes of creaming with the egg in there, and I've got beautiful volume and fluff on the beginnings of my batter. Next, go in the milk and the flour mixture, and then I'll finish with some of the vanilla, and then we're done. These are about to go in the oven. Something I would like to mention. You see how the cakes look very level? I've done that quite on purpose, and I did it by putting this flat and rotating the pan until I got it level all the way across to get a more flat cake for my layer cake, so there's less to cut off after the fact. Okay, so now we'll get this baked up at 350. Let's get these in the oven. They're ready to go and make us some cake. Time for these to hit the oven. Oh yeah. Center rack, folks, right there, 350 degrees. This is normally taking around 20-25 minutes. Check these things at about the 25-minute mark. If it's done, then pull them out. And to check that, you need to just put a toothpick in it, pull it out. If the toothpick's dry, they're finished. Okay, folks, we have our cakes out of the oven. These have been cooling for a few minutes. They need about 12 minutes to cool. Once they're cooled about 12 minutes, invert them and flip them out of the pan. Don't let them sit in there too long. After that, we're going to finish cooling them off, and once they are cool to the touch, room temperature, if necessary, we'll level anything that's not level, and then we can start building our cake. Of course, we're going to have to make a buttercream first, and well, I got butter sitting out, coming up in temperature, and generally it takes about the same amount of time for that cake to cool as it does for that cake, the butter, to warm up enough to cream into buttercream. So it's just a timing issue. After this, we move to the next step, making a buttercream. And folks, you need to start thinking, what flavor do you want your buttercream? Do you want it just chocolate? How boring, chocolate on chocolate? Let's do something exciting. How about hazelnut or almond? Or what I'm going to do, I'm going to do some coffee extract. With that, who knows? I'm kind of bouncing in my head back and forth, adding almond extract with the coffee. So it'll be a coffee almond buttercream. Quite interesting. Well, we'll see. My cakes have finished. I cooled them for 12 minutes and then turned them out. They usually come out very easy right at the 12-minute mark. One turned out without issues. The other one I had to tap it a little bit. It stuck in a couple of spots. Certainly nothing terrible or major. And it didn't really affect the appearance of it. So we have two beautiful cakes here, and not much to do in the way of leveling them because we took care of that before getting it in the oven. Folks, next we let these cool, and then when our butter heats up enough, we're going to make some special buttercream, and I want you right now to think, what do you want your buttercream to taste like? Yours can be a regular chocolate center buttercream, and I'll show you how to do that. It's not hard. You simply just sift your cocoa and then work it in a tablespoon at a time until your buttercream tastes right. Otherwise, make it any flavor you want. Be thinking about that and be thinking, what color would you like your buttercream to be? My cakes have finished up. They're cooling down really nice. I have butter that's warming up, and I'm starting with 1 pound of butter. And when I make buttercream, that's what I'll normally do. I'll do it about 1 pound at a time. Here's the trick. You got to have it at room temperature or it's not going to make good buttercream. So I'm going to be warming that up a little bit more. I have to sift my powdered sugar, and I've got some food colors out here, some powdered type, to play around with. Make this whatever color I want to make it. You make yours whatever color you want yours to be. I've got some extracts here that we're going to flavor that with, and again, this is kind of, you make it your way. I'm going to be combining some coffee and almond extract to make a very luscious buttercream. Very simple. This is the American method of making buttercream, where we first cream and soften that butter and then work in powdered sugar, and then that is a beautiful, simple buttercream. Probably the easiest way there is to make buttercream, and a great way when you're learning to do cakes. Simple recipe, fun to make. I'm getting ready to start the buttercream. Now, so you'll know, ingredients for this are pretty simple. It's butter, it's sugar, and it is extract. Okay, whichever extract flavor you want is okay. If you want to use vanilla, a teaspoon of vanilla to this recipe, which is 1 pound, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla if you want. And I'm not going to use vanilla. I'm going to use these, which is coffee and almond, and I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of each to give myself a beautiful blending of flavor for a fantastic buttercream. Now, this will be special with that chocolate cake. Something I would like to mention when it comes to putting food coloring in a buttercream, generally that's not done when you're mixing it unless you expect the entire batch to be a certain color. Then you can do it in this. Otherwise, it's usually just done by hand after the mixing is done. Your choice, depending on how you're mixing yours up, and depending on how you want your cake to be. So that's how this is. That's how that works. And let's move on to the next thing. We need to cream this butter until it doubles in bulk and it's very light in color, almost white, and then gently work in the sugar, a half a cup at a time. And basically you make it your way. If you want a sweeter buttercream, go to the full amount of this. If you want less sweet, reduce the amount of sugar. You can do that. Remember, part of this job is the layer in between the two cakes, and then we're going to do what's called a crumb coat, which is just coating the outside of the cake. What's left of this after that will be then used tomorrow to finish up the cake, and we'll probably be making another batch of this. Now, when I say tomorrow, I'm going to do a crumb coat, put this in the fridge, and then finish it tomorrow. And that's because I'm getting late in the evening, and that works fine. Now, if you're in the middle of the day or in the early part of the day and you want to continue yours, that's fine. But the video is going to continue on regardless of what I do. So we're going to do this. The next thing is we're going to get on to putting that cake together, and I'll teach you some really cool things about how to set up the base of the cake, what you set the cake on, and all of that. So there's some neat stuff coming. That buttercream is made. I've tasted it. It's delicious. It has the most wonderful smooth character to it. It will flow and shape easily. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful item for a cake. I'm looking forward to it. Buttercream that's done this way, this is my favorite way right here, the American buttercream. Folks, I'm getting ready to ice up my cake. Now, I have a cake round here. I have a cake decorating turntable. You don't have to have one, but they are awful handy if you do. And I'm going to be placing my cake on this. I'll of course be using a little dollop of icing in the middle just to keep it from moving around on the cardboard. But to keep the cardboard from moving on this, different things you can do. You can use some of that shelf liner that's kind of rubberized, you know, that keeps things from slipping. That works really well. I just use a little bit of masking tape. I tape 3 different areas, and then suddenly it's not moving. That usually works in most cases. You can do other things. Now, if you don't want this changing colors from fat, butter fat, from the buttercream, from the cake, then you need to protect this. You can do some paper over it. 3 strips of paper, one here, and one here, will keep whatever's coming down from getting on this white, okay? And it'll help protect it. At the end, you just pull it out and you're done. Another thing, you can also use foil on there. But I've learned that when you're dealing with buttercreams and butter cakes, they're going to cause these things to stain with the butter, okay? That's just all there is to it. Paper soaks up grease or fat, and that's just all there is to it. So I'm going to put my cake on here, and I'm going to start getting the buttercream on there after I've made sure it's good and level. So just do that, move on to our next step. I have prepared more of my frosting. Now, I prepared a large batch of this is what I did. Here we go, right here. Got this huge batch of icing that I whipped up, and I decided to make some brown icing. Now, I only have primary colors, red, green, blue, and yellow. Well, I used, in this case, red and green, and got this lovely color of brown. And I'm going to use this to do a basket weave design on the outside of my cake. I'm going to do a little piping with this, and this is just a simple basket weave tip. Going to have a little fun here and make it a little more ornate, but whether it's spread flat or piped on in a design, doesn't matter. Go ahead and decorate your cake up however you'd like to do it, and remember, the sky is the limit on colors. All you need are your primaries. I need to adjust my buttercream, firm it up just a little bit more for the next step. I'm going to be making some flowers. I'm going to use these Russian tips. Now, not the Russian ball tip. No, we're going to use the flat Russian tip, and I've got one here. We're going to use these to pipe 2 different colors of flowers. I want to do a red flower and a yellow flower, and I need to firm up my buttercream just a little bit because it was a bit too soft. Now, the basket weave was pretty and it was soft and perfect for that job, but this job where you have fine petals and leaves, I want to do some leaves also, where you have that going on, they're prone to bending over, okay? And if they're bending over on their own, they're not standing up on their own, and they don't have narrow peaks, you didn't mix your buttercream right. So we don't want the flower to tear off and have a jagged peak. At the same time, we also don't want it to bend over, and it's a very thin thing. So we'll take a look and see what we can do by thickening it up. The quantity of all of our ingredients today, and folks, I'm going to give this to you in weight measurements rather than volume, and that's because it's just much more accurate to do a cake this way. Okay, so what we have, we start with our butter, and up there on that butter we used 165 grams of butter. The flour here, that was 270 grams of flour, and on our sugar we're looking at 325 grams of sugar. Now, on baking soda right here, that's 4 grams of baking soda, 2 grams of baking powder, and this wouldn't weigh out. It's simply a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. My scale doesn't go below 1 gram. The same way on the cinnamon, so you're looking at a 1/2 teaspoon on the cinnamon. On that cocoa though, that is 25 grams of cocoa, 2 large eggs, 1 cup of milk, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And that right there, folks, gives you one fantastic cake. Now, let's take a look at this beautiful item. Here we are. At the end of the day, I'm ready to cut the cake. Oh, yeah. So what I'm going to do is just, I guess, find a center point and just kind of go straight down on him. Now, right now, this cake is somewhat firm because it has been in the fridge for some time. So what I'm going to do is clean my knife, and we're going to make another cut. So cut number 2. I want to get me a nice big slice of cake here. I don't want to mess around at all. Alrighty. Now, for the fun. All right. Rats. There's always got to be a problem. Oh well, we tried getting it in one piece, right? It was all the effort. Well, clean up my plate a little bit and we got it made. Got some good flavors here, folks. The thing of it is, that buttercream has this caramel-like flavor to it. It's the coffee and the almond together. They work really weird ways when they're made sweet. Almost like I said, like caramel. Enjoy this cake. Please, if you have any questions, comments, drop them in the box below. Take a look at my channel. That's Texas Cooking Today. There's links in the description box. Also to my website where you're going to find recipes and other goodies there. Thank you very much for watching, and folks, if you would, please have you a good day and enjoy your cake recipe. I know I will be. Have a good one. Bye-bye.